Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Tracy and we're making another corset, but this time we're making a leather corset belt. I picked up this genuine leather purse at the thrift store the other day and I thought it would be something different to just repurpose a bag. I was able to create this leather corset belt with the bag and I'm completely in love with it. It was my first time working with leather. I worked with vegan cork leather, but that's just a lot easier to sew with. But I'm really happy with the final product. I recommend getting a slightly larger purse. Mine was a little bit on the smaller side, so I didn't have enough for the back panels, but I ended up just using some lace and then just some of the lining. And I also made a matching garter belt, so I got rivets put in this belt and I'm like so in love with it. And as a Christmas gift to all of you, I just can't thank you enough for all of the support. I love sharing my knowledge. I'm just making this pattern completely free and it's available to download. I have linked a Google link below so you can just download the pattern. It's also available in a small as well as a medium and large. I figured out a way to just kind of add more and just make it adjustable to a medium and a large, so you guys can just cut out the pattern to whatever size you are. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial and please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Materials needed for this project are just leather and some lining, so I used a cotton button down and just a purse. You need your pattern, so that is free and it is available on the Google link I linked below. Next you're going to need a 4 3/4 inch metal zipper and your spiral boning, caps, and tools for it. And you're going to need 1 inch elastic. I have about 3 yards, and then a 1/2 inch elastic, about 1 yard. 1/2 inch rings and slides and 1 inch rings and slides. You're just going to need about 2. And then just some decorative trim and a metal closure for the belt. This was the leather purse I thrifted, so I just cut it up and I completely fell in love with the color of it and I couldn't believe it was real leather. So you want to just take your sewing pattern and just cut it out and just start cutting out your button down and your leather. After cutting out the back panel of the button down, I just fold it in half so I can cut 2 layers at once. And I just place my pattern and just make sure you make the grain line parallel to the fold or the straight grain of the fabric. Pin all your pieces down and then just cut using your rotary cutter or scissors. And with leather, you shouldn't use pins because then you'll make holes in the leather. So I recommend just placing your pattern piece and then just outlining it and then just cutting out that shape. So after cutting out 2 main fabric and 2 lining, you have all your pieces, and I didn't have enough leather, so I had to make 1 panel the lining fabric, and then I just found some lace and I thought it'd be really cool to incorporate the gold. So that was my final pieces and I was really excited about this lace. So I just secured the lace to the regular cotton fabric and then just did a 1/4 inch stitch all the way around that panel. So now it's just time to sew the shell and the lining together like this. So this is just the right side of the corset belt. So I'm just going to show you how I do this. I start by taking panel 5, place right sides together, and just stitch 3/8 of an inch seam allowance at the center back. This is the first time I've ever sewn with leather, so I'm not an expert. I've worked with cork leather and that's just a lot easier to sew with, but I recommend having your stitch settings at like a 3.5, so it's a bigger stitch, and just a heavy duty needle. So after sewing your seam, you want to just clip the curve because with leather it's really hard to make your seams completely flat, so clip the curves. And then you want to just turn your lining towards the back and just do a top stitch on the leather. And you can also press your leather, but you want to be very careful. The best way to kind of like push your leather down is to like hammer it. So I'm just kind of using a hammer to like press my seam down and this kind of helps, but the top stitch will help keep everything flat. So just top stitch it down, and don't forget to back tack at the top and the bottom. I take my water soluble pen, and from that stitch I mark 3/8 of an inch, and that's just going to be my guide for my channels. And I just stitch this down, and I repeat this 2 more times, so I have 3 channels, one for a bone, and then the next one is for your grommet, and then the last one is for your bone. You want to just place your grommets in between 2 bones so it secures it. We can attach panel 4 to panel 5 now. So you want to take panel 4, the main fabric, and then just kind of walk it onto both of those layers on panel 5, and then just do a 1/4 inch stitch. Because of the leather, you can't use pins, so you just want to be patient and just kind of just walk as you sew, unless you have like sewing clips to clamp your pieces together. And it's nice when you have your notches clipped in, because then you can just match as you sew. I didn't mark them, but they're marked on the actual pattern. So yeah, so I'm just sewing that piece together at a 1/4 inch stitch first. Take panel 4 lining, and you want to sandwich panel 5 in between panel 4's main fabric and the lining, like so, and then just place it and just sew 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. After sewing that seam down, just clip your curve, and just don't clip through your stitches. You want to just only clip like a 1/4 inch in. From that seam, you want to just mark 3/8 of an inch, and that's going to be your next bone channel. Take it to your sewing machine and just top stitch that down. Continue repeating all of these steps for the rest of the panels. So now I'm just attaching panel 3 to 4, and I'm just placing the main piece on panel 4 and stitching a 1/4 inch seam allowance like so. Next I'm taking panel 3's lining and making sure 4 is sandwiched in between 3, and just sewing 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Don't forget to clip the curve and do your 3/8 of an inch bone channel after that seam. I repeated this to panel 2, and as you can see so far the lining looks very nice on the inside, and you want your sewing to be as nice on the outside as it is on the inside, and this is the best way to sew a corset. After repeating this to panel 1, you're going to want to just take the leather part and the center front and just fold 3/8 of an inch down and do a top stitch. And just repeat this to the other side. And now that you have your shells sewn, I just take my rotary cutter, and because I'm not a perfect sewer, I just trim any excess at the top and the bottom just to make sure I have a perfect hem. So like you see, I have like extra seam allowance at the bottom, so just make sure everything is perfect. So now I can attach both of these pieces to the metal zipper, and I like to use RIRI zippers, and this one is a separating one. I got mine specially cut to 4 3/4. My trim shop actually cuts zippers for you, but I'm pretty sure you can order one this length. The best way to sew an exposed metal zipper is to just change your presser foot to a zipper foot, and you're just going to stitch down the leather onto the zipper, you want to just move the lining out of the way. We'll work with it later. And I'm just top stitching it down. When I reach the middle of the zipper, I like to zip the zipper all the way down. So I'm just lifting my presser foot and just getting the head of the zipper all the way down. And I can just stitch the rest of it all the way back up without the zipper head being in the way. And I switch the presser foot to the other side, and I'm just repeating this to the other side of the zipper. So now we can finish the lining on the inside, and you want to just fold your lining until you get away from the zipper teeth, because you don't want to get your lining caught in your zipper when you're trying to zip it up. So you just want to press that and just do a top stitch down. After top stitching your lining down, you want to just measure 3/8 of an inch away from that stitch and just stitch down for a bone channel. So now that your zipper is sewn in, you can just trim the top off. And now I'm just trimming thread so it doesn't get caught when I do my fold over finish on the top and the hem of the belt. And can we just appreciate how nice it looks on the outside and the inside? It's just so clean. I'm using 1/2 inch foldover microstatin elastic from Shindo to clean finish the top of the corset belt, and I just measure about the length of the top part and then I just sew it on. And I'm just using a straight stitch for this. I take my trim and I leave a 1/2 inch at the end so I can fold it back and just catch it as I start sewing. So I'm doing a zigzag stitch so it can be very secure, and I'm just following like the edge. And a tip for sewing a different colored trim versus the back part of your garment. I have my top thread gold and my bobbin thread is blue. As you can see, it looks nice on the inside. This corset belt only has like 14 bones total. So you want to start by taking your spiral boning and then just measuring from the bottom of the trim to the hem and just mark the bone, and then you want to just take away 3/4 of an inch and mark, and take your wire cutters and cut. I have linked the better wire cutters down below. Mine are terrible, so I recommend the ones I have linked. And you want to take a cap and just place it right on the end of the bone, and you want to take your wire cutter and just hold the cap there and take your plier, and then you just want to squeeze both at the same time. This is just going to secure your cap. And you can just slip the bone right into that bone channel and just repeat it to the rest. And now that the corset has all 14 bones, we can finish the hem. Trim all your threads at the hem before you start sewing the elastic down. I like to leave a 1/2 inch tail when I start, and then I just kind of like sandwich the fabric in between the fold over elastic, and then I just stitch right on top with a straight stitch. And since our hem is curved and goes into a point, I keep sewing until I reach the end of that point, and then I back tack. And I just take my scissor and just follow the hemline and then just trim that elastic off at the corner and the back. And be careful when you do this, just grab a lighter and then just kind of burn the edges. This will melt and cause the elastic not to fray. So I'm just doing that to both ends. And you just want to repeat this to all parts of the hem. Now that the hem is finished with your fold-over elastic or bias tape, you want to take your gold trim and then just repeat the same process as we did for the top. The only difference is when you get to the point on that hem, you're going to just want to lift your presser foot and then just kind of like pleat the trim and pivot your foot so you can just keep following that line, if that makes sense. So I hope that makes sense. It's just gonna like pleat over itself, so you're just gonna be able to like keep sewing in the direction of that hem. I always underestimate the amount of like trim I need, so I had to go back to Shindo and get like another yard of the 1-inch trim for the belt. In the beginning I said you needed 3 yards because I only got 2, but now it's 3. For your waist belt and garter, you want to take your elastic and just measure out your waist and remove 1.5 inches from that measurement and just burn your edges so there's no fraying. I take the closure for the belt and I just loop one side with like 1.25 inch seam allowance at the back and just pin it, and I repeat to the other side. And you can always just sew this down like this, or you can get rivets, which is what I'm going to do just because I think adding hardware to the belt would be really nice. So I'm just taking the fold-over elastic and just leaving it open to the 1 inch, and I'm just cutting 2 pieces that are 16 inches long, and don't forget to burn the ends. Grab your 1-inch rings and slides, and you only need 2 pairs. So first you want to take your slide and just weave your elastic up and down, and you want to have like a 1/2 inch seam allowance at the back, and that's where you're just going to stitch that down with a straight stitch. After stitching your slide down, you can grab your ring and then just feed it through the end of that elastic. So now your ring is in the elastic, and you want to take the other end and just feed it up and down that slide like so. And now you have an adjustable garter like this. And now it's time for the strap around your thigh. So you want to measure around your thigh and add 2 inches to that measurement because it's going to be an adjuster. And burn your edges. I think mine ended up being like 19 inches long each. And now you're just going to repeat the same thing we did with the slide. And after stitching your slide down, you're going to just loop your elastic through that ring on the other end like so, and then just feed your elastic up and through the slide. And now you have an adjustable strap that'll be around the thigh like so. I wanted to add an extra like hardware detail on the thigh strap, so I just like placed 3 rings together, just stacking them right on top of each other, and I just like weaved in and out, if that makes sense. I know it's like kind of confusing, but it's like a really cool detail once you figure out how you're supposed to weave in and out. I got confused a few times, but then I figured it out. And you just want to make sure after you finish weaving, you leave about 3/4 inch in front of the ring so you can wrap it over the bigger ring. And just stitch that down and just repeat to the other garter. And you'll have really nice garters like this. I take the top of the garter and you want to just wrap the top part over the belt like this and have like 1 inch seam allowance at the bottom part, because you're going to get rivets, and you just want to make sure that when you sew it or get rivets, you can still slide the garter through the belt. And for your waist belt, you want to just mark your grommet on the back, and remember it's in between two bones, so just mark your placement. And I love going to Star Snap to get my grommets done. I love supporting a small business, and they always do an amazing job. As you can see, they have the perfect gold, and look at the rivets. They're so adorable, and they're double-sided, so it's a really nice finish on the inside as well. And you need about 5 to 6 yards of ribbon for your lacing, or you can also just make spaghetti. And I just decided to buy some ribbon, and now I'm just lacing up the corset. And don't forget to knot your ends. I will insert a diagram of how to lace a corset because you want it to be easily adjustable on the back, so you can tighten it or loosen it. I'm in love with this corset belt. There's so many ways to style it. I hope you guys can recreate this, and thank you so much for watching.